I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. I have had several people come on. I can always tell when I need to have somebody come on again. They start pinging me for bring on so-and-so or bring on so-and-so. And one of them is the author of this book. Bring on Mark Taylor, the author of the Trump Prophecies. Years in advance, he correctly predicted Donald Trump would win. Made some other predictions, too, in the book. And the book has been turned into a movie. We'll talk about that at the end. It's coming out in early October. Mark Taylor, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Oh, thank you, Greg. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be back on your show.
I want to talk to you about one of the predictions. We brought this up a couple of times, and shazam, it came up in the Kavanaugh hearings. We'll talk more about the person who I don't think has much credibility in accusations for a variety of reasons. For Brett Kavanaugh, that her lawyers paid for by Soros, that her brother worked for Fusion GPS, that she's being counseled by a top Democratic strategist, that she doesn't remember any details. I digress. We'll get to that in a minute. But I wanted to talk to you about the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, his confirmation hearings with Lindsey Graham. He brought up military tribunals. And right. I mean, in no small way, like what? Say what? Military? And I'm telling you, from the very beginning, when you brought this up and you sent me tape, you think you were on True News. You were on there saying, a day after Trump got elected, I think keep getting these military tribunals. Lord's trying to tell me about military tribunals, some sort of military. Wow. Well, it looks like that's beyond just some small thing. It looks like it's real. Let's start with what you've been told about military tribunals and watching this in the hearings for Kavanaugh with Lindsey Graham bringing it up in no uncertain terms.
Yeah, the Lord started dealing with military tribunals about a month before Donald Trump got elected. Now, I've written a couple of the prophecies that said one was time was up with those who are corrupt back in 2015, and I wrote another one about President Obama that he would be ripped and stripped of the presidency, and people thought that was going to be he was going to be impeached. That's not what that meant. That meant that after he was out of office, he would be charged with treason and he would go to prison. Now, so I mean, all these things are starting to come to pass that God spoke to us in 2015. So even before Donald Trump got elected, God was speaking to me about the military tribunals. And I know it's like people have a hard time believing some of this stuff. They think, oh, this is never going to happen, or this, that, and the other. And, that's okay. Everybody's at a different faith level. But, the thing is that God is moving right now. There are going to be military tribunals. Now, Lindsey Graham had that line of questioning, just to case in point. I mean, he was asking the judge, hey, if a civilian is, I'm paraphrasing, if a civilian is charged with treason, can they be charged under civil law or military law? And he said military. And don't think for 1 second that didn't put the fear of God in everyone in the deep state right there. Because, folks, it's coming. I'm telling you.
Well, and I think that's why they're fighting so hard. One of my theses is, and also Dave Janda, but I said as soon as they seat Kavanaugh, they're going to have another person who's loyal to we the people and the Constitution, and that's going to give Trump a solid 5-4 Supreme Court. In some of these cases, if they try President Obama, that one's going to the Supreme Court.
Right, and they want to disguise this as this is Roe versus Wade. And if you notice, one of Hillary Clinton's tweets was talking about it. If Kavanaugh gets in, he's going to gut Roe versus Wade. They're disguising it under Roe versus Wade. This has nothing to do with Roe versus Wade right now for the cabal or the deep state. This has everything to do with the military tribunals. They know it. They will be charged for treason, and some of them may be executed. I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Well, that was another thing brought up with Lindsey Graham. He's talked about a couple of people that were collaborating with the Nazis, and they were executed. Were they not? He brought this
Absolutely.
up. And Kavanaugh said, yes, they were. Yes, which is not, a fun thing to somebody to be executed for treason.
Right.
But it has happened, and it's not ancient history back in the, the 1800s. I mean, this is, in the last century, during the last world, around the last World War.
Right. And, my whole message, Greg, has been that there's a World War II component about this. We've spoken at length on your program before. All they got to do is read my prophecies. God said there's a World War II component to this. The New World Order rose in World War I. They were beaten back. They rose again in World War II. They were beaten back. This time they're going to be beaten back, and it is going to be devastating. And what the people need to be ready is that we're going to have probably a rough few months, when this stuff is released, because there's going to be so much truth come out. People are going to have a hard time accepting it, and we need to be ready to help those understand what is actually going on in our country right now.
And Mark, I got to tell you, and I just want to dip in here. I know I'm interviewing you, but I mean, there is clear evidence that in the UK, I mean, Judge Napolitano brought this up and said, "Hey, the British intelligence agencies were spying on Trump. They took him off the air for a while, and then brought him back when they knew it was true." The Five Eyes components, Australia was involved in this. The Five Eyes involves Canada, Australia, the U.S., UK, and I believe New Zealand. But at least two of the five of the people that are our closest allies were involved in trying to do President Trump in.
Right, and and this is the thing with the tribunals or whatever you want to, whatever's going to transpire. This is not just about America. That's what people have to understand. This is a global cabal that God is exposing. I have God gave these prophecies to me back in 2011, talking about how He will expose the cabal, the Illuminati, all these people, the elites. God's going to take them down. Period. I mean, He's cleaning the corruption up, and this is global.
Well, somebody wrote me from Australia to ask me about the thing, and I laid out the links, I laid out the things, I laid out, Devin Nunes who's a key person in Congress who was exposing all this fraud, went over to the British intelligence services, MI5, MI6, HGQK or HQGH, I believe it is. Well, anyway, there's spy service. I don't have it with me right now, but they shunned him. Right. He wanted to find out about Christopher Steele, one of their former spies, writing this phony dossier, and then them using this phony dossier to fraudulently apply for warrants to spy on Trump. They shunned him. Who are they protecting? Why isn't Theresa May, the Prime Minister of the UK, ordering a full investigation as to who did this to one of our closest allies? Same thing with Australia. Are they just going to pretend that it didn't happen? Are they pretending? Right. It happened. There's evidence it happened. It did happen. Conclusive evidence that they got involved. Their people were involved. So who are they protecting? How high up did this go? I don't believe it was clerks and underlings that were trying to take down a president of the United States. They don't do things like that, the clerks and underlings.
But that just shows you the tentacles of how deep these tentacles go, how far they go worldwide, globally. Again, God is exposing this stuff, just like the Five Eyes. But, you can go even farther with this. You look at Saudi Arabia. When that new prince came in, he took down, 12 of their top leaders, and one of them committed suicide, which we all know in Saudi Arabia that pretty much doesn't happen. So, but I mean, the point is this is global. This is a global network, and it's going to take time to take all this down. It didn't happen overnight, and, God's going to handle it. He's already spoke it's coming. Now, how we get there step by step, I don't know. I get questions like that all the time. Well, hey, what's coming next? What's coming next? I don't have all the answers. If I tell people, go to my website, swordrescue.com, print them off for free, all these prophetic words, lay them out. It's like a blueprint. God's showing you where we're coming from and where we're going. Now, how we get there each step of the way, I don't know. God's not going to tell us every step of the way, because otherwise we wouldn't need faith if He did that.
I wanted to bring up this thing with Kavanaugh too. Why they're, and this one I want to circle back around to this. They are fighting him tooth and nail.
Right.
I am of the mind that once he gets seated on the Supreme Court, it's all over. Is that what this is about? I mean, this woman,
yes.
Dr. Ford, she's being counseled by a top Democratic strategist. She can't remember even where the House is.
Right.
She's laying out. Well, I'll do it, but it has to be fair. Excuse me. Her lawyer is at least in part paid for by George Soros, which is doing a major campaign against Brett Kavanaugh to be seated on the Supreme Court. Another family member worked for Fusion GPS, the same people that came up with the phony dossier.
Right.
And she just doesn't sound credible to me. Meanwhile, Keith Ellison's girlfriend has filed a police report, and has allegations of sexual assault, and has medical reports. But to the Democrats, that's not a big deal. Keith Ellison is the number 2 at the Democratic National Committee, Keith Ellison. Right. Well, he did this allegedly while he was a representative, according to his girlfriend, Karen Moynihan, I believe his name is.
Right. So, well, look at who's screaming the loudest.
Okay.
Who is screaming the loudest? And you have to ask yourself, who is screaming the loudest? What's in their closet? Why are they doing this? It's do as I say, don't do as I do for the Democrats, and that's the way it's always been. Well, I got news for them. TikTok, because time is running out. It's run out of the hourglass. I want to bring up John McCain, because this is a good prophetic thing right here, brother. Is John McCain was a prophetic time marker, period. And it doesn't matter how he died, okay? Because I know people are going to say, oh, he had cancer, he was executed, it was suicide, whatever the case may be. It doesn't matter. He was a prophetic time marker in the sense that judgment, we've moved from judgment now to justice being served. It is not coming, it is here now, period. And that's why they're kicking and screaming with Kavanaugh, because they know when he's in, that's another marker that they're finished. The military tribunals are coming, and these guys are going to be tried for treason.
I wanted to bring up something that Dave Janda, this on the weekly news wrap up. I did something different. I had Janda come on, and I was going to have to quote him several times on certain things, and we had kind of a weekly news wrap up conversation. And Janda, who used to be a former orthopedic surgeon, is like an old school journalist from way back. He's like a guy that, oh yeah, I worked with you back in the 80s or back in the 90s. I mean, he's just took it
Sure.
out. He's really good.
Right.
I mean, there's no real test you have to pass to be a journalist other than that you have to tell the truth. But, journalists these days, CNN, fake news, has a problem with, telling the truth and projecting the correct storyline, that you lie by omission. But anyway, he said, and I thought of you when he said, there was a Barack Obama asked for a meeting with President Trump. It was recently. He says, I don't know. He did take the meeting. I said, what happened? He said, all I know from my sources, and he's got, as I said, good ones, he says, it didn't go well for Obama.
Right.
Did not go well for him.
Yeah.
It ended badly, is what
Right.
I believe is what he said.
Right.
You have said that Obama, you start out the interview, said he would be ripped and stripped, and I thought to myself, he'll be ripped and stripped of the presidency. Well, ripped and stripped of all the Secret Service, of all the benefits, of all the anything he signed. I mean, let's talk about that. How does that?
Right.
I mean, this is a fact. This happened. According to
Right.
Dave Janda, a meeting happened between
Right.
Trump and Obama at Obama's request, and it didn't go well. Let's get your analysis. What do you think? I know you're just kind of speculating here, but what do you think? How does this fit into what you've been said in your prophecies?
Well, in the one prophecy I wrote, the Lord gave me in 2015, he said that he would be ripped and stripped of the title of presidency. So how do you do that to a president? I think, to my knowledge, there's only one way to do it, and that is if he's charged with treason, in which case he is now ripped of the title of president. So, I mean, again, did he ask for a meeting with President Trump? I don't doubt it, because I can tell you right now, this guy is going to go down. And I have been attacked even by those evangelicals that said, how dare you say that Obama's going to go to jail and he's going to be charged with treason? Folks, it's going to happen. You can attack me all you want to. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is that this man was the most corrupt president in U.S. history. And we have not even scratched the surface of the information that's going to come out on this guy. Now, there was a prophetic sign given. And I'm going to bring this up. And I'm going to probably get hammered for this. I don't care. There was a prophetic sign given on September 14th. And God's been speaking a lot through horses, like the Triple Crown win, because that's been part of my stories, this, that, and the other. There was a horse named Barack Obama, a racehorse that was euthanized September 14th of this year. So it was like a few days ago. So what was that prophetic for? He's going down, period. So whether you want to fight me on it or not, that's up to you. Your fight's not with me. It is with God, because God is the one that's exposing the corruption. He is the one that's going to take these people down. He's already spoken it back in 2015. It is done. It's over with. Nothing they can do is going to stop this.
You think Brett Kavanaugh's going to be seated? He's the guy that God wants in. That's what you think.
God has not shown me anything specifically on that. I can just tell you what I'm sensing is that I believe he is the man who God has chosen for that. He will be confirmed.
Well, that's another thing that you said that at first you said that he was going to have 3 Supreme Court judges and then 5.
Right.
Now some
Right.
people have said, well, listen, he should have known it was 5 right from the beginning. God should have known that. But you say it's okay. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just telling you about the criticism that
I get it every day. Trust me.
Okay, and what was the reason for that? I mean, there was 3 to 5.
God can't change his mind. It's biblical, period. And people want to say, well, you're a false this or false that. He should have known it from the beginning. God can't change his mind. It is biblical. So, I mean, did I hear wrong or incorrectly? I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say I heard correctly or not, but I think maybe there was a point in time, maybe God could have changed his mind. He originally told me 3. And then he came back and says, Mark, now it's going to be 5. So did God change his mind? I don't know.
5 Supreme Court judges.
5 Supreme Court justices he said one was going to die. one was going to retire, and 3 would be caught in a scandal. Now, here's the thing: people have to be careful with the prophetic is that even though they've been caught in a scandal, we may never hear about that scandal, and they've been forced to retire, so to speak. But there was a scandal that forced them out, if that makes sense.
What would happen if it was revealed that because nobody ever ran down the Joe Arpaio accusations that he had a computer generated fraud of a birth certificate.
Right.
His records in college are sealed, which
Right.
is really kind of weird. And everybody that brings this up, oh, you're a birther, you're crazy. Well, wait. Have you ever? Nobody has ever proven Arpaio, sheriff from Arizona,
Right.
wrong. His
Right.
investigators wrong that he had a computer generated fraud of a birth certificate.
Right, and I think you're going to see all that come out. I mean, and there's a lot of speculation as to who was behind Obama, who was behind putting him through college. Well, it was the Saudi Arabians. It was a prince from Saudi Arabia. Well, lo and behold, the prophetic sign that was given with the horse was an Arabian style horse. So I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. So I mean, there's more proof that God's giving signs as to what's coming.
So you think that this is we're in full-fledged, the prophecy is being revealed right now.
Right now.
It is unfolding right now.
Right now, because here's the thing, Greg. The last number I saw, I think, was around 52,000 sealed indictments. And so, I mean, again, you got to look at how long does it take to put 52,000 cases together, man. I mean, we don't want these people walking on a technicality. We don't want Obama and Hillary walking on a technicality. I would rather be patient and wait a little longer and make sure they go to Gitmo for the rest of their life. They're going to sweat it out the rest of their days.
Oh, I think they're going to go to federal prison. I don't think they're going to go to Gitmo. I think
wherever it is,
I think the cases are going to be adjudicated.
Wherever the cases end up, they're going to be in prison for the rest of their life.
I wanted to talk a little bit about this unredaction, this release of all the fraudulent FISA warrants, the text emails, Comey and Andrew McCabe. That's another thing Jan just said. He says, well, there's my sources have told me that there are threats of violence against the president.
Right.
With Comey and McCabe. And all this other, which listen, they have enough evidence that proves beyond any reasonable doubt this was a frame job. This was a failed coup. They were going to knock Trump out of office after they exonerated Hillary Clinton without any kind of an investigation. She clearly committed multiple felonies. Okay. So what do you make of this? This now they're saying that the top members of the Democratic side, Schumer, Pelosi, are telling Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, and Rob Rosenstein, who's over at supervising this Mueller witch hunt, fraud, illegitimate, ill-conceived, illegitimate investigation, because we know that there was no evidence of collusion when Mueller was seated, according to Lisa Page, the attorney for Andrew McCabe. And anyway, what do you make of them telling you basically telling them to be insubordinate and not do what the president of the United States, their boss, says to do, and release unredacted documents, release all this junk?
Right, and because that is the start of it, Greg. That is the shot that starts the race right there. And people better be prepared, because the civil unrest is going to take place initially. I don't believe it's going to be from the people. It'll be from the paid agitators, from the DNC, from George Soros and these guys. Eventually, it may lead into something larger once they start the mass arrests. But there are protection mechanisms in place. So, I mean, and this is where people are just going to have to keep your head on a swivel. We just had another shooting the other day. The deep state is kicking and screaming. They're going to pull out. I tweeted the other day. I said, be prepared. The deep state between now and the elections is going to get very intense. Look for false flags, shootings, weather events. We just had a hurricane, fires, whatever the case may be. They're going to pull out every weapon of their warfare right now, because they don't want the truth coming out, because they know that an awakened public, if you will, is a very dangerous adversary to the deep state. Period. They don't want people awakened, and this is the Great Awakening.
Are they going to crash the economy? I mean, that's what I've heard they want to do. They want to crash the dollar. They want to crash the economy. Actually, the United States doesn't want a strong dollar, because it can, hurt the emerging markets who had borrowed all this debt in dollars and now has to pay it back in more expensive dollars.
Right.
Are they going to try to crash the economy? We have a lot of debt. We got the 21 trillion debt. I know you've been following along. We got the additional 21 trillion at least according to Dr. Mark Skidmore, the professor of economics at Michigan State University, and his team of people did an investigation and found 21 trillion missing from DOD and HUD.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of money.
You know, I don't. Are they going to crash the economy? I don't know. God's not showing me anything on that. I mean, again, I just know the dollar's going to be the strongest it's ever been. We're going to have the strongest economy we've ever had. You know, how we get there, I don't know. I don't have the details, and that could be one of the details. Could we be in for a reset of some type? Could be. I have no clue.
Could we get rid of the dollar, the Federal Reserve note, and go back to an actual dollar? I think they're going to get rid of the Fed. That I do believe. You think they're going to get rid of the Fed?
I think they're going to get rid of the Fed.
That's not a prophetic thing. That's just
that's just my gut feeling. They're going to get rid of the Fed.
Well, I mean, if you look right now, we have two different currencies right now. People don't realize this.
Right.
You know, $0.25 isn't a $0.25 note; it's a $0.25.
Right.
You know, a Sakakawea dollar is a treasury instrument. It's a dollar. We don't need the Fed.
Right.
Actually, we
all know who's behind the Fed too. We all know who's behind the Fed.
Well, actually, I mean, we actually give the Federal Reserve treasury bills, treasury notes, treasury bonds. We give them treasury instruments, and then they produce their notes off the. So they produce notes, and then we pay them an interest to produce their crappy notes.
Right. Right.
I mean, that's how that works. We don't need them. The Congress can just coin money.
Right. Yeah, I think that's coming. You know, I think there's again, it's a timing thing. There's a lot going on with what's going on around the world right now globally. There's other things that probably have to take place first, but I think at some point it's going to happen. You know, what the plan is, I don't know. They could rip the Band-Aid off and do it all at one shot. Mass arrest, the feds, all this stuff. The Fed going down. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to be done.
I will tell you that you talked about China being put in its place, and lo and behold, and I just want to read this headline, the U.S. will bear responsibility. China furious after U.S. sanctions Beijing for buying Russian weapons. That's just out on Friday. On Zero Hedge, and then they just had this, one of the biggest China and Russia war games ever. And you've been saying that China's going to get beat down. I got to tell you, I mean, from a technical standpoint, just as I'm not trying to do prophecy. I'm not. I'm just telling you that technically the Chinese are weak. They cannot stand a trade war. Well, they are not doing well. They were trying to get back, and then Trump, bam, hit them with this trade war, and that is not what they needed. They're not doing well.
One of your shows, one or two of them ago, I said that I felt like there was something coming for China that was going to put them in their place. It could be a trade war, it could be tariffs, it could be whatever the case may be, all the above. And I think you're seeing that taking place right now. Everybody was worried about Russia. Russia is not our immediate threat. China is the immediate threat. And this is why I felt like God was going to do something to put China in its place. And they've been doing that. They just made this arms deal. I think weren't they buying energy or something from a different country that was under sanction? I can't remember what it was.
Well, they're buying jets from Russia. They're buying.
Right, but they were also doing some oil stuff. I think from somewhere that I thought I read somewhere. But anyhow, the point is that there's something coming. It's already happening right now with China. God's putting China in their place. They're attacking Christians. They're burning Bibles. They're doing all these things right now. Again, you got to ask yourself, like North Korea, who's behind China, who's running China. I mean, we found out who was truly running North Korea. It wasn't Kim Jong-un. So, I mean, again, all these things are taking place right now. And look at this right now. Here's another one. Breitbart just came out with an article, said that America was the #1 oil producer in the world.
Correct.
Last night, and I wrote that prophecy, energy, that said America and Israel will be the #1 energy producers. That's not just oil, energy, period. So we haven't quite got there yet, that I thought, until last night at the Las Vegas rally. Donald Trump, in front of the entire world, said America is now the #1 energy producer in the world, period.
And that's what he wanted. That's what you prophesied too. That's another prophecy that's come to roost.
Right.
You said energy, right? And then
right
when he got in, this whole tax thing, people don't realize that the tax thing opened up ANWR, opened up drilling, opened up all kinds of stuff, and that went right. I mean, the Sierra Club, all these, liberal Democrats, that just flew right under the radar.
One of my business partners is an oil guy, and he told me, he said, after Donald Trump had got into office, he said, Mark, well, here's what they're not reporting, is all these oil rigs that went down to Central and South America to drill under Obama, they're now picking up, and they were on their way back after he got into office, literally.
Evidently they got here.
Evidently they got here because we are now the world's #1 energy producer, and God told us this was coming.
Yeah, we're a net energy exporter. China also, they're doing this horrible. I mean, Google Google. Google was helping, Voto Latino. They say they didn't help anybody. They're not political, but come on.
Right.
And then they're helping China do this search engine that is censoring search engine in China. China is also working on this deal where they watch everything you do, and if you say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, they you don't get loans, you don't get good jobs, you become non-citizen, you can end up in the street living under a sheet of cardboard.
Right.
And that's what they want to bring here.
Right.
That's what Google wants to help China bring to the world. Yeah, Google. Yeah, don't do evil.
Yeah.
That what's their slogan?
That's not going to happen. And here's the other thing
Well,
too.
why do you
Greg.
think that's not going to happen?
Well, number one, because God has already spoken, it's not going to happen. Period. That's first and foremost. And second of all, is that the plan has already been put in place and it's unfolding right before our eyes. I hate to keep harping on this, but I'm gonna harp on it anyway. Is that there are Christians who are being their Bibles are being burned. I mean, they're forced underground. They're being forced to renounce their Christianity in China right now. And what the people over here need to understand, we were this close for that happening here in America. That was the plan here in America. And where has the church been for decades? The church has gotten out of politics. They've gotten out of that realm. All they've been caring about has been wealth and influence. And the problem is we have allowed this stuff to come in. The church is the spiritual and moral compass of any nation, period. And when you look at this and what's going on globally, you want to know why globally we're on fire right now, or America's on fire, is because the church hasn't done its job. Now, let me give you another case in point now. Let me give you another case in point. Is the clergy response team. The clergy response team literally is a group of pastors who have signed non-disclosures with the government, and this goes way back, even back into Bush 43, that they were to activate under a natural disaster or martial law, because this is what was coming now. So under that pretense or under that order, they were to go around under martial law or natural disaster, and they were activated in Katrina, by the way, and they were to pervert, they're being told by the government to pervert Romans 13, that you must submit to civil government, which Jesus never did, by the way. And they would literally come to your house with federal agents and get you to submit to them and take you to an FEMA internment camp. Now, which is a politically correct saying, of a way of saying a concentration camp. And trust me when I tell you, folks, they were going to round the Christians up in this country, or those who were resisting them. You were going to go into a FEMA camp, and then God knows what else, probably execution. Now, when you went into these FEMA camps, they were to separate you as a family, which is what the clergy was there to do, was to help you in your grief being separated from your family. Now, here's what you have to understand about this clergy.
Now, wait, before we go on, here's what you have to understand. It's good. There is a manual out. Dave Hodges had this on. He talked to a preacher that had the manual.
Yes, the training manual itself in writing.
So this is a state. They have it.
Yes.
They have it out there.
They have it.
This is 1.6 million preachers that were going to sell out their flock.
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
Back to you have to understand this whole. Okay,
right. This is not hearsay. This has been vetted.
Okay,
this is
I just want to make sure we got that out. That this is not some hearsay thing.
Nope. Absolutely. And he was interviewing these pastors who were involved in this. They have the actual training manuals sent out by the federal government. Now,
the Obama government, not the Trump government.
Well, it was back in Bush as well.
Bush and Obama, but this is not a Trump deal.
Not a Trump thing. This is not a Trump thing.
Okay.
So, but they never thought she would lose, Greg. And what they did is they offered these pastors special privileges, that you would get vaccines, you would get food for your family in return for turning your flock in, basically. They've been reporting on your flock all along to the government, what's been going on. And again, they were to get you to give up your guns, submit to civil government, and they were going to literally lead their flock to a literal slaughter. Now, I want to know whose name's on the list, because that to me is one of the biggest forms of treason, when you cannot even trust your own pastor. Are you kidding me? Now, why won't they release the list? They won't release the names.
Why not?
I'll tell you why they won't release the names, is because they know that even when the flock finds out that their pastor has been a part of this and was willing to sell them out because they've been collaborating with the enemy, that they would lynch these guys. That's why they won't release the names.
People should go to their pastors this Sunday and say, were you on the clergy response team?
They could, but they're not going to admit it.
Put your hand on this Bible. Put your hand on this Bible and tell us you were not on the clergy response team.
That's right. They won't do it because they signed non-disclosures. But see, and this was the plan, and this is what's going to come out in the coming months, Greg. is all this information is going to come out as to what their plans were for America. And that was, again, there was going to be the roundup for the FEMA camps. But again, they never thought she would lose.
Well,
even
you know why they
even
didn't,
the pastors didn't think she would lose.
But
even
you know
the
why
pastors.
but you know why they didn't? See, they knew that she was a loser. She couldn't win against Bernie Sanders, a communist, okay? They had to cheat her past her own primary.
Right.
And they figured they could cheat enough to get her in, which is, I think, why the polls were so off. I kept saying before the election that the polls are way off. She's never going to win. She's not going to win. Multiple people said it, but I said it from the very beginning, and the polls were way off. But you know what? I think they were off. They were off for two reasons. Number one, don't even bother to go out and vote. She's way ahead. And number two, the polls were off. So the cheating, when they cheated all these votes in, they'd say, look, the polls said she was going to win by a large margin. And look, she did win by a large margin, but she didn't. The White Hats came in and interrupted the cheating.
That's right.
And I say, wow, if the White Hats could come in when they were outside the system, the Trump people, the military, that's who backs Donald Trump, if they came in when they were outside the system, were able to thwart the cheating and give him pretty much a distinct victory in the Electoral College, which I never did believe that she won the popular vote. I never believed that.
No way.
All the cheating, I never believed
way.
that. And I think cheating is pretty rampant. I mean, there are some people out there, and Eric Eggers wrote a book about all the cheating. There's one person out there says, one report that says they get like 20 to 30 house seats because of the cheating. Illegal voting. So if they're able to do that in 2016, what do you suppose, how much cheating and election fraud and voter fraud do you think they could stop if they're inside at the controls?
Right. And here that goes along with what God was showing me, because I think I even said this on one of your shows, is that the Lord told me, he says, Mark, he says, we don't have as many blue zones or blue states as you think we do. He said, because it's all because it's being stolen. You look at anybody who's been in the House or the Senate for 20, 30 years, these people aren't staying in there. Look at what zone they're in. It's because it's being stolen. They're being bought and paid for by George Soros and his minions. So this is what's happening. So when the voter fraud is taken care of, I think you're going to, I was this close from prophesying that California was going to go red for Donald Trump. And I'm not so sure it didn't go red. It's just because of the voter fraud. I know for a fact Donald Trump won the popular vote, period, because I know what God's telling me. Because it was from the voter fraud that was the only way she won it, period. Now, when you take care of the voter fraud, the blue zones, I believe, would be cut probably in half. If I was, that's just my best guess. You would not see nowhere near as many blue zones. And I think you're going to see California go red. And when it does, they're done.
I think there's about 18 million Republicans in California in a state of 38 million. So the advantage they have out there is a couple of million. I mean, and they need the cheating. I mean, listen, I think you can't. What are they going to? They're going to run on what? We're going to raise your taxes. We're going to fire all the ICE agents. We're going to open all the borders. We're going to have sanctuary cities and protect criminal aliens. And we're going to protect foreign nationals over citizens of America. I don't know how that works. To all the poor people, hey, listen, poor people, we're going to flood the zone with people to take your jobs. Right, don't worry, we have some programs for you. Right. I mean, how in the world does anybody on the poor end of the scale, white, black, Hispanic, who's a citizen of America, how are they thinking that's going to help them?
Yeah, I don't know, but keep a very close eye on California, Texas, and Florida right now, because I've been saying this from day one, especially Texas and California. Look for certain events to take place, possibly if we're not careful. So we need to be praying for these two states, because they know that Florida is the next biggest electoral college other than California. It's a swing state, and they're trying to capture Florida. They're trying to capture Texas. We've seen too many things happening in Texas right now.
Well, they just won in Texas the voter ID law. They just won a big victory in Texas.
Right. So that's great. Which should be nationwide, honestly. But the fight is on for these states right now, the ones who are captured the largest amount of electoral college votes, because they know they lost those electoral college votes. So now what they have to do is they got to steal them somehow. So keep your eye on stuff happening. It could be false flags, whatever the case may be going on in these states, because it's retaliation. It's to try to get the people to submit, and it's not going to work. It's not going to happen.
You are a big one on talking about being negative, and I got to admit, Mark, sometimes I am too negative. I don't know. I mean, I just report the news and stuff, but I just want people to be informed, and that's a positive if you're informed.
Well, you have to be informed. You have to be informed. You have to be informed because you have to know how to pray.
Well, then tell us about what you think about being positive. Let's end this thing on a positive note. We're going about 30-something odd minutes, but you're a good guy for talking about. You're one of the few people that say, listen, you got to be positive, and this is a good thing happening.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
So just talk to everybody about what they should be praying, what they should be thinking, their frame of mind as a Christian.
Okay. As a Christian right now, we don't need to be walking in fear. We need to be walking in faith. Those that have gone before us right now have been praying for what's happening, and they don't get to see it. We are the ones that get to see this actually come to pass, that God is going to remove the corruption. He's going to set the spiritually oppressed peoples of the earth free. And we get to witness this. We get to be a part of this. So when the arrests start to go down, he may declare martial law, Greg.
No, it's going to be rough. I agree.
He may declare martial law, and that's going to scare a lot of people, just like the emergency broadcast testing that the president was fixing to do. Notice he was doing that 30 minutes after Kavanaugh's confirmation.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody, you know what I mean?
Confirmation hearing. He hasn't been confirmed yet.
Yeah, right. He was going to do that, but that got moved now, I think, to, I don't know when it was, October 3rd or something like that. I don't know when it's going to be now. So, but the point being is don't allow this stuff to give you a fear-based mindset. We need to be walking in faith. God has spoken. Look at the prophetic word. He's spoken what's coming. He hasn't given us details yet as to how it's going to happen, but there's going to be probably a rough few months when they're rounding these people up, the civil unrest, whatever the case may be, possibly martial law. So stock up on some food like you would with a hurricane or natural disaster, whatever the case may be. Just be prepared. And when we come out of this, the corruption will be removed, and we will be a much better place for it. This has to happen, folks. So don't walk in fear, walk in faith. Know that God is in control. This is all part of God's plan.
Ooh, I like that. That's very good. Before we go, I wanted to talk about this. Your book has been turned into a movie, and I just want to bring up I started looking at the reviews, and I thought, anonymous sources from Liberty University, anonymous. It's just terrible. It's the worst thing ever. It can't come on. The book is super popular. The book did way high, big sales on Amazon. I mean, it's the worst thing. It's anonymous. Anonymous. Well, listen, tell you what. I got 10 anonymous sources that say otherwise. I win.
Right.
I mean, that's not. Don't believe the devil's attacking you. That's what I guess I get now. I mean, they are attacking you. They don't want anybody to come out and see this. Talk about your movie. If they want to come out and see the Trump Prophecies, the movies, which I got to tell you, the book and. I mean, you compare, or at least I do, Orlando. You think, oh, Orlando, Disney World. It's just so beautiful and fanciful and magical and like Mogadishu is magical. Yeah. I mean, you have suffered from PTSD, the stress, the brutal stuff, the fires, the deaths, the car accidents. You wouldn't know that Orlando was such a rough city, at least for a first responder to live in, and you were there. And you were there for 20-some-odd years. That's part of the backstory. It's fabulous. But talk about your movie, The Trump Prophecies. It's done by Liberty University. Talk about it. When does it air? Tell me how you can go see it.
They can go to the TrumpProphecyMovie.com. It's a Fathom event. You can type in your zip code, and it'll tell you which theaters are playing around you.
Very good.
It's October 2nd and the 4th. So, the Lord said, have this, 30 days before the midterms, and there's a reason we're having this 30 days before the midterms is to help out with the midterms, period. Which is another important point. Go out and vote, please. And so, but the movie is based upon the Trump prophecy book. The kind of my backstory as a firefighter, what happened, how the Trump prophecy came about, and leading into a national prayer movement, which ultimately ended up with God performing a miracle November 8th, keeping the most evil person out of the White House and bringing in a man of righteousness, Donald Trump, period. Most people were looking for a preacher to be in there. Most Christians were. God wasn't giving us a preacher. He was giving us a president, period. So, so that's where most Christians fail a lot of times with some of this. But anyhow, it'll be out October 2nd and the 4th. It's playing in 1,200 theaters nationwide. So it'll be, I think it'll be a great movie for people to see. It'll be an encouragement to people. So come out and see it.
Mark Taylor, the author, co-author of the Trump Prophecies. That's the book, the movie of the same name. I'll put the trailer up. I'll put stuff up. Actually, I put the trailer up because I promoted you in the Weekly News Wrap-Up, and I found the trailer and I put it up. It's very compelling, frankly. The book is very compelling. If you haven't gotten the book, you should read it. It's more than just, the prophecies are free. You know, you can get the prophecy. You're on your what is it? On Sword Rescue? Where is it?
Swordrescue.com, which is spelled SORD rescue.com. They can print off all my prophecies for free. They were on my website for free before I ever wrote the book. They can just print them off, pray over them. You know, use them as a prayer if you want to.
And you'll send me the link for that too, and I'll make sure you have the free prophecies. But the book, the backstory in the book is pretty riveting. I thought, well, how could this? When I first got it, I mean, I like you, and I think you, you correctly predicted a bunch of stuff that's coming true. The military tribunals, the victory for Donald Trump, and the backstory in this is really quite the national prayer movement for national prayer that happened every day. Was pretty amazing. As much stuff I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Well, we still have the national prayer going. I mean, I've got two groups that I'm affiliated with, which is the strikeforceofprayer.com and then Rockin' the West Coast Prayer.com, which is two groups that I'm affiliated with. So they're still going on almost 5 days a week right now. So there's a lot of people still praying for this country, for this president right now, and what's about to go down.
What's the Bible say? Pray and he will hear you?
He will heal your land.
And he will heal your lands.
Absolutely.
Yep, that's right. I mean, we're all sinners. I mean, I tell people all the time whenever I say, listen, I'm a sinner. I'm not any better than anybody. So I'm a sinner, but I just have the grace of Christ. So anyway,
absolutely,
which anybody can have.
Anybody can have.
That's a wide open club.
Absolutely.
It's a big club, and anybody can join.
Yep, come on down.
That's right. Okay, Mark Taylor, the retired firefighter, Trump Prophecies. Mark, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com and give us a potpourri update of what's going on and what we can expect. Love your brain, and I say your prophecies. You know, I know they came from God. I know they're not yours. So when I say your prophecy, I mean from God. That you were the mouthpiece of the prophecies. So, and I know you say the same thing over and over again. They're not yours.
Right.
So anyway, all right. Mark Taylor, the Trump Prophecies, the movie out in early October. All the links will be in the after the interview section on the website. So you folks at YouTube, you can go to the right through, and all links are at USA Watchdog. Go to the after interview section. You'll have the prophecies. You'll have the movie trailer. You'll have how you can sign up for this, where you can punch in the zip code, where you can find out where it is. Mark Taylor, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you for having me, Greg. It's always an honor to be back.